This is Stephen Fee for PBS NewsHour Weekend, and on Saturday, we're going to revisit a story we did just about a year ago about all the oil coming out of the ground in places like North Dakota and how it's being carried on giant trains that are crisscrossing the country and the safety issues that poses. Recently, there's been some new rules, some recent derailments that have called attention to this issue once again. So to get some clarity, bring us up to speed, I'm joined by Russell Gold. He's the senior energy reporter for the Wall Street Journal. He joins me from Austin, Texas. Hi, Russell.
Hi, how are you, Stephen?
I'm good. Well, I'll just start with the latest. I mean, what are the new rules that the Department of Transportation has put into place, and why did they do it?
Well, so in early May, the Department of Transportation proposed these new rules. And I say proposed because almost immediately everyone sued them to try to prevent these rules from going into place. But essentially what these rules are going to do is require over the next decade that the entire fleet of tanker cars in the United States and Canada get upgraded or changed over. Thicker steel, better thermal protection so they can survive in a fire, and what's really ticking everyone off are something called ECP brakes, electronically controlled pneumatic brakes, which will allow the trains to stop more quickly.
Yeah, and so what is it though about these rules that they think is gonna change the safety picture of how we move all of this oil across the country?
Well, essentially and I should say these are one set of rules. We're actually expecting more rules to come. But these set of rules are designed so that if there is a derailment, the trains will be more resistant to fire and puncture less frequently. I mean, that's sort of the purpose of some of the head protection, the new thicker steel that they're putting in. They just don't want ruptures when a train derails, because the idea is that, look, trains do derail. It is just part of life. We'd like to eliminate it 100%. It's not going to happen. So when cars start derailing, can you prevent them from rupturing and then exploding into flames?
Right, and we just saw there was an accident in North Dakota this month. We've had maybe half a dozen of these derailments just since the beginning of the year. I mean, those pictures are so dramatic. You know, these trains blowing up. I mean, is this any more dangerous than what we've seen in years past with how we transport fuels around the country?
Yes, I think it is. I mean, for decades, the rail industry has carried around very flammable products, but not in the kind of volumes that we're seeing right now. We're just tremendous volumes of this crude oil is being moved around, 1 million barrels a day. So you're talking 20 or 30 trains every day are leaving places, mostly North Dakota, but other places, headed for the East and West Coast. We're just seeing a lot more of it, and that's a primary reason why we're so much more aware of these accident incidents. There are just that many more trains crisscrossing the country right now.
Right, and compared to about a year ago, we were out in North Dakota reporting this story. I mean, we have seen the oil economy slow down a little bit. Is that having any impact on the rail traffic?
Well, more than just a little bit. I mean, we've seen a very dramatic change in the oil price, and the U.S. Oil production has responded. But what's really surprised everyone is that while there are a lot fewer rigs drilling for oil, U.S. oil production has flattened. It's no longer growing, but it's not declining dramatically. And we've seen the same thing in crude by rail numbers. December looked like it probably is going to be a peak for a while, but it's only off 4%. So essentially, to me, what the message is that crude by rail is here to stay.
Yeah, and so you've done some reporting, obviously, on these new rules, but also on some of the, kind of worst case scenarios that could happen in places like here in New York if you had a big derailment in a big population center. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we actually followed up on an exercise that FEMA and the U.S. Department of Transportation did. They wanted to essentially they wanted to run a scenario, and they picked Jersey City, a very densely populated area right across the Hudson from New York City, and they said, okay, so what happens if a train derails right here? What's the scenario? And are all the local fire departments ready to work with each other? And it was rather startling, actually, because they were predicting just hundreds and hundreds of people sent to the hospital with very serious burns, multiple dozens of people dead. So they sort of brought home what some of the worst fears that people had, which is that if one of these trains does derail in an urban area, we could be talking about catastrophic injury numbers.
Right. Well, Hopefully that doesn't happen. Sorry to end on that note, but Russell Gold, senior energy reporter at the Wall Street Journal, and your book, by the way, The Boom, How Fracking Ignited the American Energy Revolution and Changed the World. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.